There is nothing worse than untapped potentials. If you know that you're made for more, this is the place. I know that every successful person I've ever met has one thing in common. They do not let themselves fall victim to their circumstances. They figure out a way to rise above it. So join me on this journey where I help you to be better, do better, and have better in life and in business. If you're feeling stuck and you're needing some practical tools, some hope to get you to that better life, this is definitely the place for you. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Unstuck Podcast. I am your host, Lachelle Weemy, and you guys, we have a chance to talk to Victoria Icenhower today. She is a self-love scientist, which is so fun. I've not ever introduced anybody with that term before, Victoria, and it's so stinking fun. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? How do you show up in the world today? What literally lights you up?
Thank you, Lachelle. I'm so excited to be here. So self-love scientist, yeah, I would say the way I show up is like this, like very airy, like bright. I think what comes to mind a lot is like just, oh my goodness. I'm thinking of all the things my girlfriends have told me.
Well,
It's like
share them. Yeah, we'd love to
yeah,
hear.
it's like this light of it's like this bright light of joy.
Yeah.
I would say I am a private yoga instructor. I am a scientist. I went to school for, I did biology and forensics. And I am a wild child, like let's put our feet in the dirt and like let's go sunbathe and, coffee connoisseur.
I love that. I love that free spirit about you because I have a free spirit as well, but I also have a very scientific brain, going to school for as long as I did for anesthesia and all the things that I've done. Like you have a brain like mine where it's like very scientific in one side, right? But then this like creative, flowy person that allows yourself to show up in this bundle of joy. And I got to just ask you, have you always been that way or have different parts of your life kind of led to this evolution of who you are today?
I would say the second part, different parts have gotten me here. There was a time I was more in my masculine energy with a lot of structure, a lot of discipline, and just like what's coming up is like there was no time for fun or it wasn't really permitted. And
Yeah.
that's like boom, all the things. Have structure and have fun. Like life gets to be playful.
Yes. And for those of you guys who have not, been introduced to things like masculine, feminine energy, Victoria, do you feel comfortable kind of describing the difference between the two? Because I think it's a really cool concept that a lot of people aren't familiar with.
Yeah, yeah. So the masculine energy, we have both, and this is for men and women. So we get both, and that's this beautiful whole that makes you you.
Yeah.
The masculine is like this very loves structure,
Mhm.
very like fiery, and let's get specifics in our goals, timelines. It's when you make your grocery list. It's
Yeah.
when you have to like, you're checking the box, like, okay, I made this appointment. It's this like the never ending list.
Yes. Yes.
This is what gets you to work. This is how you remember things.
Hmm.
And so it kind of gives off like this, protective safety
Hmm.
mechanism for us. And then the feminine
Yeah.
energy is that soft, flowy, this is when you're sleeping. This is when you're doing something that makes you feel creative
Yes.
or maybe something that you love
Mhm.
when you're eating and you're like, oh, this is really delicious. That moment of peace and bliss, the surrender is
Yes.
being in your feminine. And with that said, so you have like this structure and then you have this play. And then when we have them together, we have this like trust.
Hmm.
And it's gorgeous when we confuse them all together.
Absolutely. And I think that, you brought this up, and I wanted to just expand on this briefly because, again, lots of people have never heard of this before. But when we consider both of the energies in a beautiful balance, is really when the most successful people in the world show up because you have this creative part that is literally birthing ideas and birthing things and in a loving way. But then the masculine energy literally gets shit done, right? Like like they take the
Mhm.
creative energy and it, that part of us that actually does the thing, it gets us into action. And so we can, only be in action without the creative side. And you guys can see how that would be kind of you're a missing part, right? But if you were all play and all creativity, but you never actually executed any of the things that you did, that would be also a waste. And so when you can really do a great job of marrying those two, then beautiful, beautiful things are being able to be created and show up in our world. And so I love the fact that your life, Victoria, has led you to this place where not only you recognize both of those parts in you, both of those parts in your spirit, but you're actually able to harness them and utilize them into helping people in the world. And so tell me a little bit about, who you help. How do you help people today?
I work with a lot of women who are facing a lot of burnout, and
Mm,
it's just like, I'm doing all the things and I still don't feel fulfilled. There's something
yes.
that's missing, and I get super passionate when I sit on coaching calls or when I'm teaching yoga, and I my thing is to create this sacred space to invite you in, and I think it has to do with a lot of just people feeling safe to express their vulnerability
Yes.
and feeling that it is safe for me to speak my truth, it is safe for me to be seen,
Yeah.
and I enjoy helping my clients receive clarity on their own,
Yeah.
um, just by, like, asking a few good questions and, listening, and we use the clarity together and connect it back to it does come back home, like, coming back to yourself.
Yes.
Like, my thing is, like, learn to thrive on romancing yourself.
Yes. Yes. Tell me a little bit more of what that means to you. Describe what that means.
On thriving on romancing yourself?
Yeah.
Yes. I get excited, I love this. Okay. Um, so really that actually came to me this year, because for the longest time I was a, like, in air quotes, like, hopeless romantic, and I put a lot of pressure on
Mhm.
people to provide that for me. And again, like, years ago, I was really in my masculine energy, and I just never granted that to myself.
Mhm.
And, one day I, took myself out to dinner,
Yeah.
and I was like, "This is really great." Like, it was a vibe, and I had, like, the greatest service, and it really I sat with that for a while, like, sitting in that, like, beautiful energy, and I realized that we don't allow ourselves this. There's, like, this taboo around it, so I explored more on when we allow ourselves to do the things that, you know, it's almost like, instead of waiting for, the
Yes.
perfect job or the perfect man, it's like
Mhm.
I started doing or stepping into this role of the woman I desired to be, and, like, what does she look like? How does she feel? How does she dress? How
Yes.
does she show up in the room? And
Mhm.
I've integrated that in my own personal practices, and
That's so beautiful. And I think that, one of the things that you said was when you were in burnout mode and think that's, coming back to that masculine energy, that to-do list that never stops and it's go, 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 go. And if we don't take some time to add some of that playfulness in, some of that romance into learning to love ourselves again,
Mhm.
learning to create that space for imperfection and authenticity and vulnerability allows for the two to be able to come together and to create something so beautiful. And I was really intrigued when you said that because I think that so many of us really do. We depend on things outside of us to fulfill things. But once we can really truly understand how we can source that for ourselves, we actually get to serve in an even bigger, better way. Because rather than serving out of a need to be needed, right, we're actually serving out of an overflow or abundance of love that we already have coming from us. Don't you think?
Yes, like 100%. I have felt shifts in myself and around people around me because I kind of like flipped it on myself. I was like, when I access myself first, when I tap into my own, like, divine energy,
Yes.
life, it just gets like everything is abundance. Like everything becomes that abundant flow. And I just I feel more at home and more grounded versus like it's like chasing that high, and I no longer need to chase that
Mhm.
because I have myself.
Yeah, because you're already whole within you, and once you decide and really try to step into and living in that place, like, we get to serve on a whole 'nother level. And one of the things that you mentioned was that you were, like, super burnt out. I would love for you to tell us a little bit about your journey that led you to this place, because I think all of us have this origin story, right, where we felt stuck at one point, and then now we kind of crawled our way out of it, and now we're like, "Okay, now I need to help other people." So tell us a little bit about your journey.
Actually, I love telling this story. So, I I grew up in, I love wonderful parents, I have a big family, and I grew up with this idea that the way like, this is how life is going to be. I go to school, I go to college, I'm gonna get a job, I'll get married, and I'll work and have children, and that's it. Like, this is the timeline that was given
Right.
to me,
Yep.
and, so I did. To an extent. So I went to college, like, I went to high school, I did really well, and I went to college, I got my bachelor's, um, I got a job, I worked for the government for a little bit,
Mhm.
and I also, let's see, yeah, and I was married, I did have a house, so I'm checking all these boxes of these society norms of life,
Right.
and this is to say, like, that's what I thought, and I got to a point while I was working in this, very secure job, very good money, but I started noticing small things along the way, like, there was always, like, something in the back of my mind, like, I don't like this,
Mhm.
and I would watch the people that I was working with and what they were, just the lifestyle they were leading,
Mhm.
and it didn't feel fulfilling. It was
Mhm.
like there was a missing piece, and I definitely did not belong. I felt very out of place. And, the work was, you know, the work was there and I was good at it, and it just still didn't it just wasn't fulfilling, and I was not a fan of the way my health was,
Mhm.
and I mean, like, just a lot of, drinking, and that was, like, the norm to get by, and I kept looking around me, and I was like, "There's gotta be something else."
Yeah.
At that point, I met up with a mentor who I'm very blessed to still be connected with today. I met her while I was traveling. This job of mine allowed me to travel, so that was really cool. And I remember one night, instead of going out with these group of people, I was like, no, I'm going to hang back and I'm going to do yoga. And I'm so glad I made that choice because when I met her, I felt like she could see right through me.
Mhm.
And I ended up working with her for a couple weeks. And she helped me literally just almost, I want to say, she helped me pull my horse blinders off. And she helped me validate the way I was feeling.
Mm.
And I realized that I was completing the cycle and lifestyle according to someone else's terms,
Right.
and the lifestyle I wanted actually exists somewhere, like, on a whole 'nother, like, this is, like, super nerdy of me, but, like, quantum timeline, there's a timeline over
Yeah.
here where
Yeah.
it's literally the lifestyle,
Mhm.
and it took a lot of work, like, especially with boundaries, and that's in relationships. Um, it was a deep dive into something way, like, very spiritual and beautiful, and then eventually, as like I tell my clients this, I was like, the universe is always working for you
Yeah.
in mysterious ways. And eventually, throughout this process, I was let go from this job. I remember being really upset because I was like, oh, I'm a failure. And I reached out to my mentor and she was like, think about how you were feeling and everything that happened to you to this point. She's like, it's a blessing.
Yeah.
You never wanted this, and this is the universe's way of saying, "You've got this whole like, what do you wanna do now?"
Yeah.
And this was 3 years ago, and, this year, I was divorced, so my ex and I, we realized that we were no longer in alignment with each other, We were both growing into two different people, and that was really hard too. Like that caused a lot of like friction because it was this picture looking like it looks good. Like what went wrong?
Yeah,
There's supposed to be something really wrong. And it took a lot of like kind of breaking through that glass ceiling of like I know it's supposed to look like it's supposed to look like this.
right, right,
And it surprised a lot of my family because again, this is that standard, like, you're supposed to do all these things, and now I'm pivoting
yeah.
pivoting around, so, yeah, it's been a crazy journey, but I have to say, like, I love the woman I was 3 years ago, I love her, and I love the woman I was 6 months ago, and I'm so proud of her for, doing all the hard things, and I just today is the best day ever. And I am so grateful to be here.
That is such a beautiful, beautiful story. And I just have to say that I noticed a shift in you when you talked about different parts of your life.
Mhm.
And at one point, right? And correct me if I'm wrong in any of this, but at one point you said, I was working the job, I did the college, I got the job, I did the thing, and you described some burnout, right? It's doing all the things that we're supposed to do. And then
Mhm.
at some point you shifted and you could have felt like a failure. Like you could have felt like my job failed me, or I failed my job, or my husband and I like failed each other, or we, failed marriage or whatever. But you have actually led yourself back to who you are and who you were meant to be. And even though you were checking all the boxes in air quotes before, you felt like you were out of alignment. But now that you are in to literally the course that you were designed to be, the person that you were supposed to be, you are light, you are free, your way that you carry yourself is completely just of joy. And I think that is just a reminder to all of us, you guys, to listen and watch. If you haven't had a chance to go to YouTube and watch this, watch her body language, watch just the way that she carries herself and the air and the just joy that she exudes from herself, because this is what's possible if you learn to let go of what everyone else says that you're supposed to do and learn to trust yourself,
Mhm.
right? Because don't you think it's just a journey back to ourselves? And we can let society and all the programming tell us that we're failing, but really it's God guiding us back to where we're supposed to be. And I personally have, can relate to a lot of that. Like I would literally pray for God to close doors and open doors, and then when he closed it, I'm like, but I don't know if I want that closed, right? And then after the fact, you're like, oh my gosh, that was the best thing ever. Because I think that we want to be comfortable and we want to do all the things that we're told to do, that we're supposed to do. But really, when we allow ourselves to come back to the place that we're supposed to be, that we were designed to be, that's when we feel most authentic and that's where we feel most in flow.
Yes, 100%. And it kinda comes back to that energy again. We like to be told what to do, and because that gives us that safety, but we don't
Mm,
allow ourselves that little bit of fun, like
yeah. Yeah. So I know that you talked a little bit already about kind of how your journey had led you to this place, but I would love for you to give us any additional insight that you can, Victoria, either in how you were able to get yourself unstuck to the place that you are now, or even how you help your clients do that. We would love, love, love some practical tips and some solutions that we can start to think about, or even maybe even execute today after we listen to this.
Yes, I think and I ask myself this almost daily when I especially when you're faced with if you feel yourself like you're in conflict or something keeps coming up, ask yourself, what is the least thing you wanna do right now? And maybe that looks like having the hard conversation with somebody, like developing that boundary.
Okay.
It could also be, um, you know, if you want to like for me, it was 3 years ago, it was saying, "You know what? Yeah, I think I will get coaching because I know, like, people hear coaching, they're like, "Ooh."
Yeah.
And when you invest in yourself
Yeah.
when I say investing, I mean, like, it's not the money, it's the experience and the energy and
Yeah.
everything that you could do for this this timeline that you are looking for, this
Right.
desired lifestyle, when you invest in it and you go in 100%, like, it can be kinda scary at first
Yeah.
because your whole body's like, "I'm not used to this, it's not safe." If the right people in your life, like, you'll attract in, you'll find the person that you want to experience this with. To be guided is 100% okay. That makes you brave, that makes you
Yeah.
strong, and, I think another thing it would be I don't know, I think those are my 2 biggest like, investing in myself in the first place was difficult because I was like,
Yeah.
I don't do stuff for me, I do stuff for
Mhm.
other people." Like, I was
Yes.
people pleasing, like
Yes. Yes.
and now, with all the investments I've made in myself and then, like, launching my business, and then
Mhm.
I started doing a lot more research into, like, the romance and, like, now I, like, went from people pleasing, like, instead of people pleasing, self-please yourself, and that could
Yeah.
be going for a walk, it could be a spa day, it could be taking a few breaths.
Yeah. Absolutely. And, I just think that it's so powerful when we can open ourselves up to be in receiving of what is being sent to us, right? So
Mhm.
I think that as women, I think a lot of times we struggle with receiving. And your story about how you met that woman at the hotel or wherever you were on that trip when you decided to stay back and do yoga, she was sent to you
Mhm.
specifically for you on this journey. And you allowed yourself to open up and receive the wisdom that she had and to receive her friendship and to receive the things that she was, the love and the affection that she was able to give you as another human being on your journey. And I think that oftentimes, number one, we don't want to receive, we're too proud to receive. But number two is that we close our eyes, just like you said, the horse blinders, like we close our eyes to all of the solutions, all of the people, all of the things around us that can start to show us the way to the newer, better life. And I think that when we can open ourselves up to that, like the path just literally starts to form in front of us, don't you think?
Absolutely. Learning to lean in to, like, the
Mhm.
voice, your intuition,
Yeah,
the downloads, and then becoming like, just trusting the surrender.
yeah, yeah,
Us like, "This is perfect. Everything is perfect." Like, even if it feels kind of, like, really hard right now,
yeah.
this is temporary, and it's right on time.
So you like when I talk to you, when I look at you, it all just seems so natural, right? For real. Like you just seem like this is how you've been your whole life. And it's hard for me to even like comprehend this like sciency, like book number kind of person,
Bug.
right? Like for real, just because of the way that you carry yourself. And so I'm gonna guess that it was really, really hard for you to learn how to surrender
Yes, it was. It was very hard.
and to trust your intuition because you were a very, like, I'm guessing, a very analytical person. Am I right?
Yep, I wanted to know the why.
Yes, everything. So how in the heck did you get from that way that you were literally, your whole life to this place that you are now? Like I would love for you to give us some insight into how we can tap into our intuition, how we're able to surrender more than most of us are comfortable with.
It it's been a lesson, and even to this day, like, I'm learning a lot still, like, it's never over. But when I think about who, I was 3 years ago, who I was 6 months ago,
Yeah.
there the way that this past version of myself held herself in a way, like, 3 years ago, it was, "Well, give me the answer, tell me what to do."
Yeah. Yeah.
So and it that's that comes from a perception of how we grow up in, like, this society of, like, we go to school, we're told this is the way, this is the answer, this is the timeline, this is what you need to do. So I used that in when I first received coaching, it was like, she literally asked me, and we joke about this to this day. She's like, "What do you want?" I was like, I thought you were gonna tell me that.
Right? Right?
And I think it also comes from, because at that point, I wanted freedom. I
Mhm.
wanted confidence,
Mm.
and, you know, that was something she had to, like, literally pry out because
Yeah.
I wasn't allowing myself that. I didn't think I deserved it.
Yeah.
And that can be like, that's some really hard, like, to sit with. You're like, oh, wow.
Oh my gosh, 100%. I mean, that's one of the things that you guys, when you're listening to Victoria's and her story, I want you guys to really, really, truly listen in to how important it is to invest in yourself and to allow yourself, even before you believe it, to allow yourself to be worthy enough to get the help or to take care of yourself or to invest in yourself. And, people that have listened to my podcast for a while have possibly heard my story about how, literally 6 years ago, like I was a completely different person,
Yeah.
crazy, introverted, awkward, shy, um, never ever like invested in myself. Everything extra went to my family. And I kind of joke around that literally learning how to wash my face with good skincare was a life changing experience for me because I never allowed myself worthy enough to spend the time or the money on taking the time to wash my face and to take the money and actually spend something on myself versus whatever shampoo just happened to fall on my face in the shower. And so it's so interesting how something so small, like learning how to wash my face with nice big girl stuff, literally changed things inside of me to say, okay, Lachelle, you didn't die because you invested some time in your and some energy and some money into yourself. And that allowed me to have the catalyst to start to invest in myself in other ways, invest in myself in healthy relationships, people that lifted me up, investing in myself in personal development that allowed me to grow in areas that I never even knew possible. And now, because I chose to invest in myself with time and money and resources, not only am I able to serve in the little things that I always did, but now I can serve in the bigger things because I have more tools in my tool belt. I have more confidence in myself. I have more ability to be able to serve in bigger ways. And it all helped by investing in myself and allowing people to tell me what I need to hear. I literally had a coaching call with my coach yesterday, and she challenged me to freaking own it. Own it. Like I had to push her or she had to push me. And I think about this like she tells me like how much I should charge or what I should do. And I think, oh my gosh, I can't do that. And then I sat and thought about it. I'm like, if I'm paying you to tell me this and I'm not taking your advice, like how stupid is that? Right? And so it's just the little things that you start to recognize that when you invest in yourself and you are allowing other people to come in and help you, you can totally level up and your ability to serve is like that much bigger. And it all just starts with that small little step of being worthy enough to get the coach or to get the mentor, to get the skincare or whatever it is, right? That's going
Yeah.
to allow you to start to level up. And it's such an amazing experience. I love the person I was, but like you said, I don't want to go back to her. Like I'm this is an evolution and it's so much fun to see how much further I can go and how much more of an impact I can make just because I'm taking these small steps, right?
Yes, 100%. And I love that story about the face wash. It's literally this when you start adding these small things, like these little rituals,
Small things.
because you're like,
Yes.
my future self dresses like I'll never forget. I was like, yeah, my future self dresses boho. I'm wearing like puffer pants and a crop top right now.
No, that's so true. And that's one of the things that I just love to teach and coach her on is like becoming her, becoming him, becoming the person that you want to be. And so I would literally say to myself, like, okay, what would $1 million earner, or $1 million business owner do in this situation? How would they carry themselves? What would they wear? What time would they get up? What would they do with their morning routine? How would they respond to this message? How would they create this message? Right? To all of the things when you start to think about who you could become, right? It starts to indicate to you the tiniest little decisions all day long that are consistent with that version of yourself.
This is true, and it's also it's very scientific because your brain is starting to develop all of these like, you're integrating all these new things, these new
Yes.
behaviors, and
Yes.
suddenly you're creating a whole 'nother like, you literally creating a new reality.
100%. And I'm going to get nerdy because you and I have already like connected on like, quantum physics and brain science. Like those are my like big things, and then connecting with my higher power. Like those are the three things that just like let me on fire. But there are things called mirror neurons, you guys, that when we can visualize ourselves as this person that we want to become, we have these neurons in these brain cells in our brains called mirror neurons that literally take that and they take it as the reality as it is now. And so our brain literally starts to believe that that is actually something that's going on right now or is a memory versus a imagination. And it's the coolest thing because when we start to step into that identity, our brain literally starts to look for evidence to match that construct that we have. It'll literally look for situations, solutions, people, relationships, small decisions that come in alignment with that reality. And so the more that you can repeat those types of things inside of your brain and allow your brain to form these new pathways and allow those mirror neurons to basically trick yourself into thinking that that's already in existence, you will literally step into that life. Like 100%. There's science behind it that is so freaking powerful that we get to choose who we want to become. Like how cool is that?
I love it. It's my favorite.
So, is there anything, Victoria, that we haven't had a chance to discuss that you were just dying to contribute to this conversation? Because I want to make sure that you had a chance to share all of the beautiful knowledge that you have with us.
I think one of the like in the very beginning, one of the hardest things for me was to stop saying yes to be validated by other people. Like that was the people pleasing part of me. I was like, why am I saying yes again? Who is this in service to? So,
Yes.
like throw that out there for your audience. Just be like, think about, is this decision in alignment with what you want? Or is it like who is it serving? And when you're doing something that you love, then obviously the answer will be a yes. If
Yeah.
it's an absolute hell yes, like go for it. But if you
Yeah.
feel like that sticky, stagnant, ugh, there might be something there.
Oh my gosh, like that's so true. And there's two things that I want to just expand upon in that like little tiny bit of beautiful wisdom that you gave us. The first one is literally touching into your intuition and asking yourself, am I making this decision and does it feel expansive or does it feel restrictive? Right? If it
Exactly.
feels expansive, that's a sign that you're on the right path. If it feels restrictive, it's your body telling you this isn't right. Like think again, try again. I also will always want to help people understand that whenever we make decisions, big or small, asking ourselves what motivates that decision. Is it out of love or fear? So
Mhm.
oftentimes as people pleasers, right, we make a decision out of fear that we're not going to be accepted, fear that we're going to be rejected, fear that we're going to let somebody down, fear that we're not going to be liked. And therefore, it's the fear that motivates our decision. But if we can go into a decision out of love, like I would love to do that, that would light me up, that makes me feel expansive, sister, you do that like right now, today, as soon as you can, right? But if you recognize, like, you know what, I am making this decision out of fear that I'm going to be left out, fear that I'm going to upset someone, fear that blah, 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 name the thing, you recognize that and you tune into your intuition and think, oh, that does feel really restrictive, then that is a sign to you to reevaluate that. Because like Victoria said, if it's not a yes, a hell yes, then it's a no. Because when you say yes to things that are not meant for you, you have to say no to things that are. And that feels icky itself. And so I wanted to just give you guys a permission to trust yourself, to trust your motivations, and to give yourself that permission to say no. And Victoria actually like already jumped ahead, which is what I love. So I always, always, always ask our audience or our guests, I'm sorry, to give our audience a question to ponder that's going to help them move forward. And you did such a beautiful job with that. So thank you for giving us that question to think about that's going to move us from where we are to where we want to be. You guys, I am so grateful that you tuned in to listen to Victoria and all of her wisdom. And I just want to thank you, Victoria, for showing up today and sharing your story, sharing your vulnerability, and just your beautiful spirit to give all of us hope that we can have the peace and the joy that you carry with you every single day. Now, if you guys have not already, make sure that you hit hit subscribe. Make sure that you leave a review. Let Victoria and I know what you got out of this conversation. It's so much fun. If you take a quick screenshot of our conversation and you share it in your stories and you tag us, I would love to shout you out on my stories as well. So make sure that you're doing that, telling people that you're listening and letting everybody know how amazing Victoria is. You're going to find all the ways to connect with her inside the show notes. And I hope that you guys all have the most amazing, joy-filled, spirit-led week yet. So I'll see y'all next week. And Victoria, thanks so much for showing up.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Untuck Podcast. I'm so grateful to be on this journey with you. And don't forget to check out the show notes if you want to get into my private club, the Better Club, to be able to learn better ways to be better, do better, and have better. So until next time, keep showing up. Let's get unstuck together. Have a great day.